773 death threats. How Trump's words weaponized his base against his own ally. The email subject line read exactly 3 words: Marjorie Traitor Greene. Inside, a death threat against her son. Not vague. Not implied. Explicit instructions on how they planned to kill Derek Greene, with details so graphic that Capitol Police would later flag it as a credible assassination threat requiring immediate FBI investigation. Marjorie Taylor Greene stared at her phone screen in her Capitol Hill office at 11:47 p.m. on a Thursday night in late November 2025. The dim glow illuminated her face as she scrolled through 12 more emails. All variations of the same message. All using Trump's exact phrase. All promising violence. She had seen death threats before. 773 of them, to be exact, reported to Capitol Police since January 2021. For 5 years, the threats came almost exclusively from the left: angry Democrats, progressive activists, people who despised everything she represented. She had learned to live with it. Hired private security. Carried her Glock everywhere. Practiced at the range weekly. But this was different. These threats were coming from her own people. From MAGA supporters. From Trump's base. The same people who had worn her campaign shirts, donated to her re-election, defended her through every controversy. Now they wanted her dead. And it started with 2 words from the President of the United States: Traitor Greene. 3 weeks earlier, November 15, 2025. A Tuesday morning that would fracture the most powerful political alliance in modern Republican politics. The Senate hearing room buzzed with the usual Washington energy: staffers shuffling papers, journalists checking phones, senators grabbing coffee before the session began. Marjorie Taylor Greene sat in the gallery, her posture rigid, hands clasped tightly in her lap. She was there for one reason: the Epstein files. 4 months, Greene had been pushing, privately at first, then increasingly publicly, for the complete release of all government documents related to Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking operation. She had met with survivors. Listened to their stories. Heard about the rape at 14, the trafficking, the powerful men who had escaped accountability for decades. Trump had told her to stop. Multiple times. Through back channels, through staff, through terse text messages. It's going to hurt people, he warned her during a heated phone call the week before. Good people. Innocent people. Let it go. But Greene couldn't let it go. She thought about the women who had stood trembling in front of press cameras, their voices shaking as they told stories they'd kept silent for 20 years. She thought about the power structure that protected predators. And she made a decision that would cost her everything. She signed the discharge petition. It was a procedural move that forced a House floor vote on releasing the Epstein files, bypassing Trump's opposition and GOP leadership's stonewalling. Only 4 Republicans signed it. Greene was one of them. When Trump found out, the response was immediate and volcanic. November 16, 2025. 6:23 a.m. Truth Social post. Marjorie Traitor Greene has betrayed the entire Republican Party. She turned left, became the rhino we all knew she always was. Something happened to her over the last month or 2 where she changed. Very sad. The post went viral within minutes. Screenshots flooded Twitter, Facebook, conservative message boards. Conservative media personalities, who had praised Greene as a warrior just weeks earlier, immediately pivoted. Has MTG lost her mind? From MAGA queen to traitor in 30 days. What happened to Marjorie Taylor Greene? In her Rome, Georgia home, Greene's phone exploded with notifications. Text messages from colleagues ranged from sympathetic, "Stay strong," to accusatory, "You're destroying the party." Her staff fielded hundreds of angry calls from former supporters demanding explanations. But it was the emails that began arriving that afternoon that changed everything. The first one came at 2:47 p.m. "You betrayed Trump. You'll pay for this. We know where you live." By 5 p.m. there were 17 more. By midnight, 43. Her security team flagged 3 as credible threats requiring police notification. Local Rome City Police increased patrols near her home. Floyd County Sheriff's Department offered voluntary monitoring. But Capitol Police, the agency responsible for congressional security, offered no additional protection. Greene had requested a security detail multiple times over the years. The answer was always no. Security details were reserved for leadership: president, vice president, cabinet members, Speaker of the House, majority leader. Not for rank-and-file members, even controversial ones who had received 773 documented death threats. She was on her own. November 18, 2025. Washington, D.C. Outside the Capitol building. Greene stood on the Capitol steps surrounded by Epstein survivors, women in their 30s and 40s now, but still carrying the trauma of what happened when they were teenagers. Cameras surrounded them. Press crowded close. "I've never owed President Trump anything," Greene said, her voice steady but carrying an edge of defiance that surprised even her closest allies. "But I fought for him and for America first. And he called me a traitor for standing with these women." The clip went viral. Cable news played it on loop. Conservative commentators called it political suicide. Liberal media celebrated what they saw as a Republican civil war. Trump responded within hours. Another Truth Social post: lightweight Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, green grass turns brown when it begins to RO. Performed poorly, became the rhino we all knew she always was. The threats intensified. November 20, 2025. 3:17 a.m. Greene's home in Rome, Georgia. The doorbell rang. Then rang again. Then wouldn't stop ringing. Greene, sleeping fitfully after another night reviewing security protocols, jolted awake. Her hand instinctively reached for the nightstand where her Glock rested. Through the bedroom window she could see flashing lights, not police lights but delivery vehicles. Pizza delivery. 7 cars. 14 drivers. All claiming they had orders for her address. Doxing. Her home address, which she had carefully kept private for 5 years, was now circulating on pro-Trump message boards and encrypted chat apps. Someone had decided the best way to harass her was to send dozens of fake pizza deliveries throughout the night. It was juvenile. It was annoying. And it was terrifying because it meant hundreds of angry Trump supporters now had her exact location. Rome City Police arrived within 12 minutes. They dispersed the delivery drivers, took statements, filed reports. But they couldn't undo what had been unleashed. The next morning, a pipe bomb threat was called into her home. Then another to her construction company office. FBI and Georgia Bureau of Investigation responded promptly, as Greene would later recount. They cleared the buildings, found no devices. But the message was clear: the threats were escalating from digital to physical. November 21, 2025. 8:47 p.m. The resignation announcement. Greene sat alone in her home office, laptop open, camera positioned. She had spent the entire day wrestling with a decision that weeks earlier would have been unthinkable. She recorded a 7-minute video that would shock Washington. "I will be resigning from Congress effective January 5, 2026, she announced, her voice carefully controlled. "Loyalty should be a two-way street. We should be able to vote our conscience and represent our district's interests." She cited the impossible position Trump had put her in, threatened with a primary challenger backed by his endorsement, attacked daily on social media, abandoned by colleagues terrified of receiving their own nasty Truth Social post. But she didn't mention the real reason. Not yet. The death threats against her son. November 22 through December 5, 2025. The escalation. Derek Greene, Marjorie's adult son, had largely stayed out of his mother's political life. He had his own career, his own life. But when the threats started arriving with his name specifically mentioned, everything changed. "We're going to find Derek Greene and make him pay for his traitor mother. Your son won't live to see Christmas. Marjorie Traitor Greene's family deserves what's coming." The subject lines all used Trump's exact phrasing. Some emails included photos of Derek pulled from social media. Others had his workplace address. One included a detailed fantasy about kidnapping him. Greene forwarded every single threat to 3 people: President Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, and FBI Director Kash Patel. Vance responded within hours, "We'll look into it." Patel's office sent an automated acknowledgement. Trump's response came 2 days later. Greene has never revealed the exact words, but in every interview since, her description is consistent: harsh, accusatory, zero sympathy, extremely unkind, unspeakable. Whatever Trump wrote, it wasn't an apology. It wasn't concern for her safety or her son's life. It was blame. In that moment, sitting in her Capitol Hill office reading Trump's response, Greene understood with brutal clarity that she had committed the unforgivable sin in MAGA world. She had prioritized principle over loyalty. And Trump would never forgive her. December 7, 2025. 60 Minutes interview with Leslie Stahl. "After President Trump called me a traitor, I got a pipe bomb threat at my house and several direct death threats on my son," Greene said, her voice calm but weighted with 5 years of accumulated fear. Stahl leaned forward. The subject line was? His exact words. Marjorie Traitor Greene. "Those were death threats directly fueled by President Trump. I told him. I told J.D. Vance. I got a response from President Trump that I will keep private, but it wasn't very nice. The clip went viral instantly, 2.3 million views on Twitter by morning. But what stunned observers was Greene's willingness to directly blame Trump for endangering her family. All of the death threats came from the left, until I stood with the Epstein survivors, she explained. That's when President Trump turned on me, and then new death threats came from the right. December 8, 2025. 7:34 a.m. Trump's response to 60 Minutes. Trump unleashed a 250-word Truth Social post that was part presidential statement, part personal attack, part media criticism. The only reason Marjorie Traitor Greene turns brown under stress went bad is that she was jilted by the President of the United States, he wrote. Marjorie is not America First or MAGA, because nobody could have changed her views so fast, and her new views are those of a very dumb person. She sort of reminds me of a rotten apple. Nothing in the 250 words acknowledged the death threats. Nothing expressed concern for her safety or her son's life. The entire focus was on defending himself and attacking her credibility. Conservative media struggled to navigate the narrative. How do you defend a president whose words demonstrably triggered death threats against a congresswoman and her family? How do you attack a congresswoman whose only crime was advocating for rape survivors? Even Tucker Carlson, typically Trump's most reliable defender, seemed uncertain. When law enforcement officials plot to break the law, we're not talking about politics anymore. We're talking about the rule of law itself. The MAGA civil war had become undeniable. December 9, 2025. Atlanta News first interview. Greene, now just weeks from her final day in Congress, spoke with a local Georgia news outlet. Her exhaustion was visible. The characteristic fire that had defined her public persona seemed dimmed by something deeper than political defeat. I don't want to have anything to do with that anymore because I have seen firsthand over the past 5 years the horrific results of it, she said. This is conduct that is extremely unbecoming of the President of the United States. She revealed that her office had reported 773 death threats to Capitol Police, a number that didn't include countless online threats, swatting incidents, or doxing attacks. She had never been given a security detail despite requesting one multiple times. I protect myself independently, she said, her Second Amendment advocacy suddenly carrying new weight. I'm a big believer in the Second Amendment. I own multiple guns. I practice regularly. The subtext was clear. Congress wouldn't protect her, so she had to protect herself. When asked about Trump's response to the threats against her son, Greene's composure cracked slightly. His response was unspeakable. What he said to me, I'm not going to repeat it, but it was absolutely unreal. And he had no sympathy for me or for my family. The psychology revealed uncomfortable truths. Trump's base had spent years following his cues about who to attack. When Trump labeled someone a traitor, his supporters understood it as permission to act. Greene had been MAGA royalty, defending Trump through impeachments, investigations, indictments. The base loved her because Trump loved her. But the moment Trump withdrew his blessing, they turned with stunning speed. It wasn't just political disagreement. Greene had chosen rape survivors over the president. In MAGA world, that was unforgivable. The threats weren't policy critiques. They were promises of violence against a perceived traitor. December 15, 2025. 3 weeks before resignation. Greene's engagement to Brian Glenn was announced, a jarring contrast to the political firestorm surrounding her. Happily ever after, she posted, showing off her ring. Glenn was leaving his White House correspondent position to follow her to Georgia. Well, I gotta go with Mom here, he said. The message was clear: family over politics, safety over celebrity. January 5, 2026. Her last day in Congress approaches. Marjorie Taylor Greene's story reveals the dark machinery of modern political movements. When the most powerful person in America calls you a traitor, his supporters hear it as a call to action. 773 death threats. A pipe bomb threat. Explicit threats against her son. All documented. All inadequately addressed. Greene's resignation wasn't political calculation. It was a mother protecting her children. A woman who had spent 5 years threatened from the left, only to discover the threats from the right, from her own people, were worse. Trump's final comment: great news for the country. No acknowledgement of the threats. No concern for her safety. Just satisfaction that a disloyal ally was gone. Greene learned what many before her learned. In Trump's world, loyalty flows only one direction. The moment you prioritize anything, principle, victims, family, Over that loyalty you become the enemy. The 773 death threats were the price of independence in a movement that demands absolute allegiance. And Greene decided that price was too high. What happens when the most powerful political figure labels one of his own allies a traitor? The answer arrived in 773 threats and a resignation that shocked Washington. Sometimes the strongest warrior is the one who walks away to protect the people she loves. Greene's exit isn't political calculation, it's survival. And in the ruins of her political career lies a warning. Loyalty demanded at the cost of family, safety, and conscience eventually breaks even the most committed believers.